And in theory, I am streaming live. But you can't see it yet unless you're watching in the future. If you're watching in the future, you can see this. And now people should begin appearing. So it's been a busy couple of weeks for me. I spent last weekend speaking at a middle and high school event. Did 4 talks, did some paint dodgeball. Got tackled and they stole my shoes at one point in time. That was pretty exciting. So that wiped me out. There's both the process of having to write all those talks and then deliver them, then all the physical activity that just goes along with being at the event itself, followed by just all that just draining. It was pretty heavy stuff too. What I was talking about, it wasn't just fluffy things. It was heavy at times. And then, came home, just wiped out for a couple of days, just laying down. And then Thursday, spoke at a college class. On YouTube and marketing. It was a marketing class, and so kind of told my story and my thoughts on growth, how to use YouTube, all of that stuff. And, so it was like one big speaking event to this other really cool thing. And then I'm trying to... capture as many of my I recorded all these talks I delivered, so I'm trying to edit them and share them with the world. And I'm working on launching this podcast, which figuring out the logistics of getting footage and schedules and everything takes a bunch of toll. And then I'm trying to do main content on my channel, so it's like as always, even though it's like a slow season for movies, it's a busy season for me, which it tends to always be kind of a busy season for me. But oh well, that's the fun of this, is that why I got into it, is doing stuff that I enjoy. Majestic Demon, hello there, Mr. Chandler. Hello there to you too. Majestic Demon, how are you doing today? I am doing good. Just wishing that I could pause time just a little bit to get more stuff done. I just need to. Even taking a couple of days to try and pause and close out the retreat, recover, and work on editing videos for those, it's still more than I could get done with the time that I took. And so then I had to get back into the grind of creating videos, and it's like, okay, there's just always more and more stuff happening. But just like these specifically, a talk video. It's not like the type. It's not the type of editing I normally do, but there is quite a bit of editing involved with it. And then to render them and to get all the footage ready, because it's from different sources than I normally use, and so it just takes the prep time to it. And then to render an hour in 1080 takes 4 hours, and I still just have this one laptop, and so then it's just everything kind of keeps compounding itself, like taking forever. So it's like, oh man. I just wish I had more time so I could get all this stuff done. It's like all this really cool, exciting stuff that I want to share in the different formats and get done and put it out there out in the world. And I just don't have time to do all of it. So, frustrating. And some of it, I've been, for Christmas, I asked my family just to give me money so I could save up for a new laptop, as they did that. And then through some other things, I've got some money saved up to get a new laptop, because this one's 6 years old. It wasn't designed to do daily video editing, and like it was not designed to be what I use it for. And so then, like, I'm saving up, and people gave me some pretty nice amounts of money. But when you're trying to when you do video editing full time, and you do these live streams, just want to get a computer that really lasts and really gets the job done. And I just don't have that yet, or I don't have the money for that yet. And then I'm trying to clear up some budget stuff, or not. We had to get a new roof and a new air conditioner over the last couple of years to try to clear up those couple debt things. So a bunch of different moving pieces right now, and that everything just kind of wish that I could. If I had that better computer, editing all this stuff would go quicker, and rendering it would go quicker. And so I wish I had more time, and I wish that this computer was just a little bit nicer. Not Seemly Fake says, hey, hello to you too. Majestic Demon says, how's the boy feeling? Good. I'm skeptical as to whether he was actually sick. Actually, in the talks that I gave last weekend, there was a whole bit in there about how my daughter got sick as I was prepping everything right before it. And he got upset one day because he's like, I never get sick. She gets sick. She gets to stay home and watch TV and play video games all day. I never get sick. I never get to do that. And then the very next week, he gets sick, but not really sick. Just like, technically speaking, you can look at the numbers and it's, he had a fever, so he can't go to school. But was he really sick? I don't think so. I don't think he was really sick, so... maybe that's just my skepticism. I've got no shortage of skepticism, but I don't think he was really sick. So he's feeling better. And but I had to quarantine him in my office. And I was back to everything else I just mentioned of how busy I was and trying to edit all these videos and stuff. That's the other thing that it just combined with son's sick, combined with trying to work on all those other videos. And then wanted to do my Blu-ray collection video, but it's such a ordeal to do it. Even thinking about it, like with my camera, you can't plug it into the wall or anything, and so it has to be battery life. So I will kill the battery while filming it. I've got a couple extra batteries, but I don't think I have enough battery power to even film the whole video. So I have to film it and then take a break to charge my battery for an hour and come back, finish filming it, hopefully. So then it turns into a 5 or 6 hour shoot, and then just to render that down. It's going to be a long time. So it's just all this just different stuff that's all big. It's all big stuff that, once again, going back to that laptop, I'm excited for, hopefully in the not too distant future. Man, if I could get it right before summertime, like right before May, second half of April, we actually paid off a huge debt thing. Paid off the roof, actually. That's what we did earlier this week. It's pretty cool. Like, it was, we're getting all responsible as adults and paid that off. And so that cleared up this big, gigantic spot in our budget. And so then we can start working towards some of these goals. So maybe that laptop, so I can get stuff rendered quicker. And that'll make editing everything so much better. Just Demon, thoughts on Bambi being remade? I think it's a terrible idea. I don't like the strategy that they're going for, and I don't think they fully understand which movies are and aren't working and why they are and aren't working. And so they're going for a nostalgia play for Bambi, but the people that are nostalgia for Bambi are 70 years old. They're not. Lion King, I'm nostalgia for that because that was when it came out when I grew up. I'm the age that has kids that are the right age. Like, we all watched Bambi growing up, but it wasn't like the cultural event when we were growing up. That's the thing that happened a long time ago. It's a classic. We all know the story. It's the same reason Dumbo didn't quite capture the attention the way these other ones did. So I think it's a short-sighted idea. David Patterson, I saw The Turning last night and I thought it was awful, just awful. Yeah, that's everything I'm hearing. I don't know if I'll be able to make it to see it. Just everything I've been saying about just how busy I've been. Maybe when I'm rendering one of these massive videos and it tells me it's going to take 3 hours, I'll drive to the theater and watch it. If I do, the review won't be on my main channel. It'll be on Patreon and on Instagram. So you guys will get to see my thoughts on that if I'm able to catch it. David Patterson, which Blade Runner movie do you prefer? The second one, 2049, by a lot. I've never really liked the first Blade Runner. Like, I can respect a lot of things about it, especially production design, the look. But it certainly comes off far too metaphoric, poetic, and pretentious to me. A lot of P words. And so I thought the second one did a much better job of tackling the same subject matter while not losing me in the process and not being too weird. I mean, it balanced it all much better, and I'm pretty sure I said all that in my review of 2049, where it's a couple years old, but I'm pretty sure I stand by everything I said in that one. Bryce Bailey, hey Sean, what is your favorite MCU Captain America suit? Mine is the either Civil War or Age of Ultron because of the red trim. Not a fan of the gray one from Winter Soldier. The original one, the first Avenger one, the World War II battle suit one. I think that one looks the best. And it's a little bit of cheating because it's a World War II soldier outfit with the U.S. flag stuff. But I just like what they did with that one. David Patterson, I prefer 2049, but I still love both of them. Yeah, I definitely don't love both of them. I was very impressed with 2049, especially because I went in not a fan of the original. And people always, oh, well, just check out the final cut. If you check out the final cut, then you'll like it. You know, I've seen three of the different versions because I originally watched the director's cut. I originally watched the first cut of it, which I think that was the one that had the voiceover, and then the director's cut didn't have the voiceover, and then they did the final cut. And that's not what the things that were changed there didn't address my issues with it. And every time I've watched it, I've just been like, okay, there's so many things here that I think are interesting ideas. I just wish someone else would tackle it in a different way. Then we get 2049, and that happened, and it hit all the right notes for me. Not seemingly fake. Do you think Rise of Skywalker is a good Star Wars movie? I mean, I don't know. I put out an hour-long spoiler review. I put out my normal review. I've put out my rankings. And I've talked about it on podcasts. So I don't know which of my things that you've listened to. The more I think about it, the more I kind of process through it. I don't really change any of the things I've said about it. I stand by everything I've said, especially the idea that I think it should have been 2 movies, but I still enjoyed it. I would say that I gave it a B, 8, I think, B8 in my review system. I'm starting to feel like I probably should be like a C plus 8. I think it's a movie that I should be using. The reason I have the 2 scores is to differentiate between quality and entertainment. And it's a movie it's Star Wars. I really enjoyed it. It's that 8. That's why I give it that 8. But every time I talk about it, I just list off all of these things that I think are legitimate problems. And I think for that reason, I probably should drop that letter score significantly lower. And that's where it's tricky. Actually, I think even in light of where I rated Last Jedi, I think it was a C plus. And I think maybe it's tricky when you're trying to figure out. I just significantly enjoy Rise of Skywalker more than Last Jedi. But I think Last Jedi is a better made movie in many regards. But so it's tough. I don't like the story that Rian Johnson told. I don't like the direction he took the characters. I think as a Star Wars movie, that the way you phrased it is a good Star Wars movie. I don't think it is a good Star Wars movie, but it's not a terrible movie. There's a lot of things about it that are very well made as a movie. There's also plot holes with Last Jedi. And Rise of Skywalker, I think, has a lot of issues as a movie. There's a lot of microwaved filmmaking. I mean, it's just quick cooked filmmaking with it. And but as a Star Wars film, I don't mind the ideas. I don't mind the ideas at all. The bringing back Palpatine, the answers about Rey and everything. I don't mind any of that stuff. So, yeah. Just to give me thoughts on Masters of the Universe being pushed back. So I guess it's just announced today that it just once again Masters of the Universe keeps getting pushed back again. This is one of these projects I just don't have a lot of faith in it until it feels like concrete, and it's concrete in hands that I trust. I have no faith in this project. It's been in development hell for 20 years. They've been trying to do a Masters of the Universe movie for an incredibly long time. Christian Harloff of Schmoes, of Collider, he used to work for one of the studios, I believe it was Joel Silver. This is 15 years ago that he was in the process. I mean, it's before Schmoes existed. So over 10 years ago. He was there, and he said that they had this great concept at one point in time that he really enjoyed this one version that there were, and he talks about it very frequently. You could just look up Christian Harloff, Masters of the Universe, and there was some version that he thought was great, and it was kind of a Star Warsy type thing. He took it more seriously. It wasn't campy, and for whatever reason, they just can't get it off the ground. And to me, that's always red flags are all over that, and it doesn't guarantee they're going to be bad. Bad Boys for Life has been in development hell for 10 years as well. It took forever to get that movie made, and I thought it was very well done. I thought they did a great job with that one. But at the same time, when there's projects like that, my natural default is to be like, I don't trust this project. Even the people that they're casting as He-Man and the directors, it's not stuff where you're like, oh, they got this person, I'm excited now. It's all ones where it's like, oh, okay, I don't know who that is, but okay. So I just think they need to find something that makes me confident. Otherwise, it's going to be a trailer before I get excited. Just even, why do you think January releases do so poorly with critics? Because it's just a dumping ground. It's not a season where people are going to the movies. That's the same with September. Late August, early September. There's exceptions. Like, they found a way to cut through with it. It was just so, like, it's this thing that cuts through. But most of the stuff that you see late August, early September, typically speaking, is no good. And it's there. You can even look at like the flow of where American society's at those point in times. It's right after the two big break seasons. It's right when kids go back to school. So when they go back to school after summer break, late August, early September, they're not going to the movies like they were right beforehand, and they just spent a bunch of time going to the movies. January, right after Christmas break, right after a bunch of big releases, right when the kids go back to school, right when you're getting into these new patterns, and that's not when people go to the movies as much. There's just not big, it's not a great season for movies. And so they every year it's a dumping ground, and then they try to have that one counter programming thing that is the kind of they place their bets, like, can we be the one that has the good movie that cuts through? That's what it did both times. You've got this dead season. You put it in the middle of this dead season as really well-made horror that has something that connects with people. It feels like a fall movie. They put it right there. There's no competition. Both of them did great. And then in January, Bad Boys for Life is probably going to do great because it just cuts right through, and there's no competition. So it's that. It's just not a season primed for like doing well, because people aren't typically going to the theater at that point in time. May through first half of August, every week is a big release. So because people are going to the movies, and sometimes it's stacked, 3 big releases in one weekend, because people are going to the movies, they're buying tickets. If you don't see this one, they're going to go see that one, and the problem is you're competing with each other. And then you have movies like months like January, where it's not that people are going to the movies, but there's no competition, so it's like this weird, interesting spot. I'm surprised more studios haven't tried to, like, let's experiment January 15, let's put out an MCU movie. And it has no competition for a month. But they don't really try it. They're not normally that interesting, so they do it with Bad Boys, and, hopefully it'll do well for Bad Boys. All right, we're starting to get lots of questions. We were a little bit slow there at the beginning, and so I was taking my time, and then now we're now I'm all backed up because it took too long. Jackson, hey Sean, took a while to get. Wanted to let you know the link you posted takes us to the dashboard, not to the videos, but I cannot comment. That's frustrating. So I posted the wrong link, and then I cleared it. I deleted that, and then I put the right link in. And so that's frustrating. Let me edit that real quick. Legitimately, I copied the right one, watched it post, but I guess it had already embedded in, technology does stupid stuff sometimes. Where did that go? Paste your link. Okay, sorry for the delay. In theory, it's fixed. Thank you for the heads up. Bryce Bailey said, and I know exactly what you were talking about. There was something on my end that I made a mistake, and then I thought I'd fixed it. Apparently I didn't. And hopefully I also once again thought I fixed it. Hopefully it works this time. Since Tom Holland's Spider-Man is most likely cameoing in Venom and 2 and Morbius, do you think that any of those characters are likely to cameo in Spider-Man 3 in the MCU? I think we have to see the movies first. I think we have to see what that's going to look like to have a guess as to what they're going to do with Spider-Man 3. We're just far enough out that I don't know. I think that we're going to... I would say it's over 50% chance that characters from either Venom 2 or Morbius show up in Spider-Man 3. Because that's what they've been building towards. That's what they want. They want their characters showing up. So I'd say over 50% that we're going to see something like that in some form. I don't know if it'll be big or small, but I would say over 50%. Jackson, doing anything cool for the Super Bowl? No, I don't ever do anything cool for the Super Bowl. Well, that's not entirely true. I might do some stuff with the youth group at church. If they do something, I might show up to that. But otherwise, I'll be at home, and if whatever good trailers drop, I'll do reactions to them. So it'll be it's a work day for me. It's an opportunity to try and do things better. Justin Demon, is the link not actually the link to the stream? When I clicked on it, it brings me to something called YouTube Studio. Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. It was a bit of I guess it was an oopsie on my part. I thought I'd fix something that I hadn't. That's the link for my setup page, and then at the bottom of my page, there's a link that's for you guys. And then I posted the wrong one first. Then I looked at it and went, oh, that's not right. And I thought I grabbed the right one. Maybe all I did was highlight the correct one, but I didn't click copy. I don't know. But apparently I sent you guys to the wrong link. Sorry about that. Rich Reviews. Finally managed to make my way onto the chat. Yeah, I made it a little bit of a maze today. Jackson, hear me out. Brad Pitt is Adam Warlock. I don't know anything about Adam Warlock, so I don't have any thoughts as to Brad Pitt playing him. So people ask me all the time, what do you think about Adam Warlock? It's not a character I'm familiar with, so I have no thoughts on him. Majestic Demon, what do you hope for when Venom 2 is released? For me, the obvious thing is a better script than the first one, maybe a little more action than the first one. Yeah, I just think a more focused story that, you have Eddie trying to balance out his life as this character, new threat shows up, and it's just a little bit more streamlined because the first one just had to set up do an origin story for a character and a villain, and then had all these other things it tried to do, and I just don't think all that worked. And I think the fear is that when they're trying to set up their own little pocket shared universe with Spider-Man, that's where I could see things getting off. That they have a streamlined story about the villain, but they want to tie in this, and they want to tie in this, and I think that's where they could lose it if they do too much of that. Rich Reviews, thoughts on Jim Carrey wanting to do a Mask sequel only if they get a director as a revolutionary visionary? I don't... Jim Carrey is like 60 now, or he's very close to 60 years old. I don't have strong thoughts on whether, I don't. It doesn't seem like a good idea. I don't think it works. I don't think it translates to try and bring him back. If you did it to where someone else is the Mask and it's like more of a reboot Quill or something like that, where he's like the guy that was that before someone else becomes the Mask, hunts him down to get advice or something like that. I could see that maybe working, but, I don't immediately like the idea. David Patterson, are you excited for the New Mutants? I'm worried because of all the production issues and delays, and most recent saved it for me. I was extremely excited for it. Yeah, I did a trailer reaction and kind of gave my thoughts in there. They're more elaborate than I would be right now, where it was fresh on my mind then. But the short answer is I'm excited to see something different. I like it when we get comic book movies that have a different voice and different style. Obviously, I love the MCU, but they all have the same voice. Slight variations, but it's all basically the same voice. And I'm not crazy about that. And so I like the idea that we'll get a horror comic book movie that has superhero type stuff inside of it. I like that. Jackson, I watched Jackson. I actually really enjoyed it. When I watched it when there was a spoof of her, I don't think it was, but it was watching it that gave me the considerable amount of enjoyment. Yeah, I think people picked on it because it's lowbrow humor and that's not really in style these days. But I think there's plenty of things about it to enjoy. I had a lot of problems with it too, but I think it had a good bit of enjoyment, entertainment value. Bryce Bailey, what's your boldest prediction about some plot points you think is going to happen in one of the MCU Phase 4 movies? I don't really have any bold, interesting predictions. I don't have anything interesting. I don't think we have enough information to make good predictions because it just looks like 6 random movies. There's not a clear through line. It's like, oh, now we're gonna go. I guess for the time where they're at, we're gonna go 10 years in the past or whatever, 8 years in the past, and then we're going to go off. I think way into the past in space, and I mean, you just kind of like walk through all these different things that they're looking to do. It's just all over the place, and so I don't have any interesting predictions because I don't know what to make of what they're doing. And the ones that I would say I don't even think are all that bold or interesting. I talk about how it seems like the multiple timeline type stuff is going to introduce us into the multiverse stuff, but that's not a bold prediction. That's not particularly interesting. It's just saying that that's something that I think is going to happen because it's that told us that, basically. Rich Reviews, thoughts on Divergent screenwriter doing an Anaconda reboot? I don't have any thoughts on it. I don't have strong opinions on Divergent. I think I've watched the first 2. I haven't read the books. Don't remember the movies too well. I'm not sure if I've ever seen Anaconda. It's just like one of those ones that it's a property that's always going to be a little bit fun and easy to put out a movie. Like, oh, it's a snake eating people. Like, okay, that's always something you can do. People are always kind of interested in that. That's why all that sci-fi original crazy stuff works. You give it a bigger budget, put some bigger stars in there, it works on the big screen. I just don't have strong, interesting thoughts on it. Jackson, would you rather see Galactus in a Fantastic Four, Guardians, or Avengers MCU movie? Do you think he could actually work as a villain with how overpowered he is? I'm not sure. I don't have a strong opinion on which one he shows up in. I think if you're going to do Galactus, you have to make him the guy you're building towards. So would you rather see him show up? I mean, he can show up in whatever he wants to, but I think it has to be a big throwdown movie. So it kind of has to be whatever their next big event film is. You'd want it to be the next end game because he is so overpowered. So you have to find a way to build to that as opposed to like the Fantastic Four are punching him in the face. I don't want to do that. I don't want him to appear as a big cloud again. So, and I don't know how you pull him off either. He looks better, much better as a drawing than as an actual character in full flesh. Landon, thanks, Jax, for giving us the link. I do appreciate that. That was both me reading Landon what's said and me thanking you. Rich Reviews, thoughts on the new Saw movies being titled The Book of Saw? I don't know, is that a thing? I haven't heard that. It sounds ridiculous to me, so I don't immediately like it. I hear that and it sounds ridiculous, but it's the Saw franchise. They kind of do ridiculous. Bryce Bailey, what do you think is behind all the fake news spreading about Disney Plus? For example, breaking news that Hawkeye was canceled or that Obi-Wan was being delayed and completely rewritten. Well, I mean, they're not totally fake news. That's the thing. Is that the stuff about Obi-Wan is mostly true. It is being delayed because the scripts are being rewritten. That is 100% true. Obi-Wan himself has said that. It's the... and there is kind of stuff going on with Hawkeye. That's not false. That's true. Stuff is going on. There's a few things that I think are causing it. First one is that Disney's not being the one to announce this stuff. If you just say, hey, we're pushing it back 3 months because we want to give one more pass on the scripts, there are a couple plot points in there that are a little bit similar to The Mandalorian, and we just wanted to make sure that this is just as good and doesn't feel like it's retreading. No one would be offended. Everyone would be like, oh, cool. But when the way the story breaks is because people were sent home, and so then suddenly, if that's not good, are they canceling this? They've created the scenario where the rumor mill is spreading actual news, but they're spreading it like it's rumors. That's a problem. And with Hawkeye, there's stuff going on with Jeremy Renner. There's some scheduling stuff going on. There's stuff in his personal life. There's some scheduling stuff with Pitch Perfect 2 and 3 girl. And we're like, there's things happening, but they're not the ones explicitly telling us what that is or what the delay is. And so then the internet fills in the gaps. Then you have just like garbage sites like We Got This Covered that just exist in the realm of speculation spread as scoops and news, and they are just dominating Facebook right now. For some reason, people just keep sharing that crap left and right, and all of it's garbage. And put all that together, and the rumor mill is dominating where some of this news is coming from because there aren't official announcements. An official announcement goes a long way to just squashing rumor mill. Jackson, would you ever consider doing a video where you give your personal nominations for Best Picture? Nope, I wouldn't do that. I don't have that. I don't want to do that. Like I don't think that way. Like I don't. I got you do the end of the year lists that I do because that's the way I think. If I obviously I do numbered lists, so if I had like, oh, here's my picks for the 5 best actors and the best directors, I just don't do that. I don't like. I'm not it. I don't want to do that. I don't enjoy that. Or like, especially like screenplays. I've read 0 screenplays this year, so for me to pick what I think are the 5 best screenplays is ludicrous. Which is this pretty ludicrous that all these people that haven't read those screenplays are doing that too. But I don't deal in best like at all. I don't enjoy doing best. That's not what you subscribed for. I haven't sold myself as that, so I don't have. I'm not that person at all. Even when I do those discussions, I bring in my friends to kind of drive them. But I just don't even think that way. Majestic Demon, do you have any hopes for any movie actor or who's nominated at the Oscars? Hopes for any? No, I don't. I don't care too much. It's mildly interesting. This year I've actually watched most of the stuff so I can have an educated opinion on it. But I don't care about award shows. Like I don't put that any like significant weight in a lot of that stuff. I assume they're going to be wacky as can be and say things that are I totally disagree with. So I just don't. I just don't. I have no skin in the game at all. Not seemingly flake. Do you think that it's Rian Johnson's fault that The Rise of Skywalker is a disappointment? Do you think he deserves all the hate? Well, I don't think he deserves any hate. I think anyone hating on him is just being an entitled fan. He had a vision for some characters that was different from theirs. I wish that was not the case. I wish that his Star Wars movie lived up to what I think the quality of the rest of his work is. It didn't, though. I don't think it did at all. And that's unfortunate, but it's not like he's a terrible guy deserving of hate. He just had a different vision for what Star Wars should be and is. Is he at fault for Rise of Skywalker? No, of course not. You can't be blamed for not... You can't be blamed for someone else's movie. Did he set up a good finale? No. But Kathleen Kennedy gave him the go-ahead. Hired him. They saw his scripts, greenlit it, go for it. And that's, I mean, who's at fault? The people that made the movie and the people behind them being in the corner that they had written themselves into. And that, I just see it as Kathleen Kennedy and maybe Bob Iger and whoever those top-level people were that weren't giving good oversight, didn't have a good enough plan, and they couldn't steer it properly. They let Rian Johnson make a movie that didn't follow up a lot of JJ's stuff very well. It seemed to kind of ignore it or just cut it off at the knees and subvert it. And then he didn't really clearly set up an obvious finale. He didn't set it up. And so then how do you make a finale out of something that's not set up very well, that's satisfying? And now we have kind of 2 versions of it, the movie that was made and then the scripts that have leaked over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I blame Kathleen Kennedy. I just don't think she's done a good job at all in leading Star Wars. Jackson, I'm submitting a screenplay to a bunch of contests for the first time this year. It's been cool to see the following. Your dreams, thanks for giving me inspiration to follow mine. Awesome. Very cool. That's I always wish that I'd been bold enough to actually write one and go somewhere with it, but I never really did. Bryce Bailey, should the Dark Universe restart under Blumhouse kicking off with the Invisible Man this March? Those are two different questions to me. Should Blumhouse be the one running with kind of this monster shared universe? Yeah, I think Blumhouse is the right people to be doing that. What they were doing before, I just don't think, it was just always a bad idea. Like, let's try and take these monster movies and make them blockbusters. We'll put Tom Cruise in it. We'll give it MCU humor. We'll get a bunch of big sci-fi. Like, what? It just didn't make any sense. It tried to be both a horror movie and an MCU movie at the same time, and the tones just didn't mix very well. And people rejected it. It clearly had an identity crisis. Blumhouse, and it was just too big of a budget for properties that I just don't know that are that. They're not all blockbusters. They're not, and it like worked 20 years ago when Brendan Fraser did The Mummy, because they made them these Indiana Jones adventure type things. It was just kind of 20 years later, let's fill the need people have for an adventure film. And so it had a consistent tone. These ones just didn't have a consistent tone, and so it just didn't work. Blumhouse is the right studio because they'll make them for $10 million, $20 million, and you can make your money back doing that. And they'll get people with an interesting take, give them a low budget, and they just know how to make it all work. I would absolutely prefer it. Should Invisible Man kick it off? I haven't seen the movie, so I have no clue. I don't want a movie. I don't want to. Whenever anytime you have a movie that's designed to be a standalone, and then you go, let's make it a shared universe, usually goes poorly. It's just not a good strategy. So if it was designed to be one, sure. If it's not, I'm not crazy about that. Man of Steel was not designed to kick off the DCEU, and they tried to do that, and I think you ran into problems because of that. I mean, David Goyer and Christopher Nolan's vision for Man of Steel was, what if, for the first time ever, a superhero emerged on the scene? That was their vision for the film. Like, how would that affect the world? So the movie's designed to set up to be that. And then the rest of the universe is like, but actually there have been superheroes around forever. Okay, well, those are two different visions for it. Richard V's, what Nickelodeon game shows have aged well? I haven't watched any Nickelodeon game shows in 20 years, so I have no clue. I think the inherent nature of them, they're probably all aged fairly well, because they're just, for kids, dumping slime on someone is always kind of fun, and going through obstacle courses is always kind of fun, so they're designed to kind of always work a little bit. But I mean, I haven't watched any in 20 years. Landon Peterson, what do you think that the DC should do with the Flashpoint storyline? What should they do? I have no clue, because I don't know what they're trying to do with their universe in general. I think the thing that's interesting to lean into, what I love about Flashpoint is the Thomas Wayne Batman stuff. That's an inherently interesting character to me. And I think there's a lot of really powerful things you can do with that. Even the arc and the idea of it, of, the star is the Flash, but the character that has the arc is Thomas Wayne Batman, who, if you're not familiar with it, in Flashpoint, because of the change in the timeline, it's Bruce Wayne was killed, not Thomas, and Thomas becomes Batman, and he's this very angry, murdering, alcoholic Batman. And so you have the Flash show up, and he says, in my timeline, Bruce is alive. And you have that be the thing that sparks the humanity inside of Thomas to help the Flash. And you see Thomas become a good man again because he's inspired by Bruce and who Bruce Wayne grew up to be, being the vigilante that was not shooting people with guns. That, I think, is really profound stuff. I think there's a lot of really cool things inside of that. Bryce Bailey, thoughts on War Dogs? It's my favorite Todd Phillips movie based on a true story movie. I haven't seen it, actually, so I have zero thoughts on it. David Patterson, I'm not excited for Venom 2 at all. I did not like the first one, and I only have one other movie directed by Andy Serkis. It was Mowgli, which I didn't like. Yeah, I'm a little nervous because of the director swap. I wasn't crazy about what the guy did on the first one, but it was more script things, I think, because of the tone when he got into his groove, worked. So I would have liked to see him finish it out, or not finish it out, but do a second one. And then getting Andy Serkis, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Andy Serkis, want him to be successful. I don't know of him being ready for this kind of thing. I don't know how he got it, so it makes me nervous. Jackson, the screenplay is a dark comedy about a stand-up comic and his opening act of the world tour together and turns into a power struggle thriller by the end. Does it sound remotely original, interesting? With a one-sentence summary, it's tough to say. We don't have a lot of movies about the world of stand-up comedy, so I think immediately there's room inside of that. Making it a thriller about power, but because it's about stand-up comedians, there's a lot of room to do a lot of things that are dramatically intense while at the same time being entertaining because it's a comedy. So I think there's a lot of room inside of it for success, but based off a two-sentence summary, there's not a lot to comment on. So, Majestic Demon, what are the two best movies you've seen this year? Just Mercy and Bad Boys 3. If so, which better in your opinion? Well, so this Saturday, I believe it'll be my ranking the January movies that I saw. So I'll have a video that answers that. I mean, if you watched my Just Mercy review, I think it gives the answer to that. If you watched my reviews, they should answer the question. Just Mercy is the better movie. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think I thought that it was trying to do very well. So anyway, but yeah, but Bad Boys I thought was great at what it was trying to do. I just thought Just Mercy tackled more serious things and touched more deeper emotions and did it also very well. But my reviews elaborate on all that. Which reviews? Have you seen the Hulu trailer for the series High Fidelity that has Zoe Kravitz replacing John Cusack? Nope. I didn't even know that was a thing. I haven't heard of that. So, Landon Peterson, will you get the Peacock streaming service? I don't know enough about what's going to be on there. Depends on what exclusives are on there. Basically, what I do is I tend to just sign up for things and cancel them once the thing that I'm watching is over. So I kind of hop around quite a bit, and that's the thing that's what makes the model good, is that you can do that. I pay my 2-month subscription, $15-$20 to watch this one show, and then I cancel it. And that, I've heard a lot of people like, oh man, people are just dropping off Disney Plus now that The Mandalorian's over. Well, it's bad if people signed up with just a free trial to binge it in a week and then quit. That's not cool. I don't think that's people cheating the system. Not doing anything immoral, but please don't do that. At least pay for a month if you're gonna binge watch the whole series to keep the system working. It doesn't work if everyone's cheating the system. But the idea of people signing up for the 2 months while it airs and then canceling, that's not a bad thing. That's a benefit of this model, is that you can do that. So I'll see what's on the Peacock, and then I'll go from there. All right, I'm way far behind and my nose is driving me crazy, so I'm going to start talking real fast, answering real quick. Matt G, I told someone, I guess I'm watching the 1960s Batman show. I'm watching it, the Arrowverse. I'm going to try to reread that. I told someone, I guess if I'm watching the 1960s Batman show, I'm watching in the Arrowverse. Well, it's a little bit true. Do you think that they may ever connect the Arrowverse to the Dark Knight or Joker universe, just as far as a reference? Maybe. It's with what they've done thus far, it's entirely probable that they'll do some sort of little wink. I mean, they closed a little bit of that out with where they closed out the Crisis, so I don't know. But obviously, with how many connections they just did, it's possible. Bryce, if Wonder Woman 1984, Shazam, Black Flashpoint, Flash, if all do well, should the DCEU move forward and try having a more connected cinematic universe, possibly another try at Justice League? If they get their groove, I'm all for it. I mean, of course, I love shared universes. The reason I love the MCU is because it is a shared universe, interconnected, and done so well. But it's the done so well is the key piece. So, I'm all for it if they do it right this time. Don't do it as this all right, let's make it happen. Let's rush. Don't do that. Do it right. I'm all for it. Landon, do you know when your Blu-ray haul video will be postponed to? No, I don't know. it's just a tough video to do. So I don't know when I will have the time to do it. I've mapped out the next 2.5 months. So in the one hand, I have a plan, but like I haven't even really looked at next week to see like, can I make it happen in there? It's just tough. When you have a video that takes 5-6 hours to shoot and it's going to take 12 hours to render, that's a long time. That's a long time to lose my laptop. So it's tough. Jackson, I watched the original Hellboy for the first time. It's ridiculous, hyperactive fun. It's a lot of fun. Majestic Demon, do you think Kathleen Kennedy should lose her job? Her track record with Star Wars has been awful. She's angered a lot of fans because of it. Yeah, I do. Even if you put aside the fan reaction to some of these movies, and the Star Wars fan base is impossible to please. But Rogue One, all right, so Force Awakens had big turnover in the writing process. Michael Arndt was hired, and then they kind of stepped on George Lucas's toes and how they handled some things. Well documented that the way that they handled the treatment of George Lucas's treatments he handed over, not the best. Rogue One, basically they basically redid the whole movie after the first trailer had come out, and they brought in a different guy to write and direct it. This is all documented. You can look up. Joe Blow has a WTF this franchise. They have one on Rogue One. Go watch it after this. Is very interesting. But the movie turned out all right, but there was a ton of behind the scenes trouble on it. Then Solo, they were almost done shooting a movie and then fired the directors and brought someone else in. That's a really bad sign. They obviously had fired Kevin Trevorrow for episode 9. That is just so much. That's so much turnover for so few movies. Like with Doctor Strange 2, it's a big deal that Scott Derrickson left the project, and it's like the first time that's happened with a MCU movie in like 5 years. Every other project, actually slightly over every other project, has had significant behind the scenes turnover. And that's just a really bad sign. And that's a sign of someone that isn't driving things very well. Something's going on there it's not clicking. And it's just Solo did not do well. For a movie with Star Wars in the title, it was like $400 million worldwide with a budget not terribly much lower than that. That is a very poor box office for a Star Wars movie. The numbers on the episodes are just dropping pretty significantly from where Force Awakens, and that was an event. There was always going to be a drop off, but it kept dropping off. And then you had Solo, and so I think she's done a lot of things that have she just hasn't done a good job. Rich Reviews, do you believe that we as a society are doomed? We've made it thus far. There's all kinds of things we're doing that are stupid. There's a lot of issues in society. But always step back and let's put everything into perspective, how barbaric everything was 300, 400 years ago. Like, you just go 300, 400 years back and how crazy, insane things were. Like, you could own a human in the United States 150 years ago. Just 170 years ago. You could own a human. And it was just 50 years ago, 60 years ago, just overt racism was just accepted. That's a lot of progress from how just insanely barbaric we were as a society and as humans up until very recently. So for all the problems we have, all the things that still aren't perfect, all the dumb things we keep doing, I'm talking to you and you're 1,000 miles away. Technology is advancing. We've been slow to do it, but we're like picking up pace pretty quickly on just beating down some of the ridiculous things about society. There's a lot of great things happening. I totally understand looking at certain things and having a cynical eye, but you just, like any realistic look in the past, like how crazy you would have to be to want to live 50 years in the past, because so much is so much better now. That the idea that society's doomed, I just don't see it. Like, we all constantly make make mistakes moving forward, and then we work through those ones, and there's a lot of things we're doing a lot better than ever before. Matt G, I heard they're still shooting Rise of Skywalker. Almost done. That's kind of true. Rich Reviews, have you seen the show Shameless? No. Jackson, best fast food burger. Here in Texas, it's Mighty Fine. I don't know if it counts as fast food, but it's from the same company that does Rudy's, the barbecue place. That's the best. Matt G, Rich Reviews, I love Shameless, UK version and ours. I mean, I don't really have any interest in a show called Shameless just in general. Jackson, would you like Knives Out to be a separate film from the first one? Would you like it to be another mystery surrounding the family from the first film? No, I absolutely don't. I do not want it to be the same family. I want it to be the Agatha Christie model. You take the detective and put him in a new mystery. Daniel Craig is back. Maybe some of these other auxiliary characters that are investigating or something is back, but it's a totally different family. You just strain too much credibility if like the same family keeps on having these super interesting mysteries. But the idea that this world's greatest detective type character, he keeps on going to new mysteries, that's entirely plausible. That's where there's a room for new stories. Bryce Bailey, do you think Kevin Feige should try and direct an MCU movie? I have no idea. I really don't know, because I don't know if that's something he has any desire to do. If it's something he's interested in, yes. But the flip side to it, with all the power he has, and he just hasn't done it, he probably is someone that just understands that that's not his specific skill set. He's the guy that works really well, and he's back here looking at all the pieces, and he spots talent really well, and he goes, that's a director that would work really well with what we're trying to do. That actor right there is really good. And he knows how to work with people to build the teams and the systems to like make things happen. That's what a producer does. And it's not quite the same thing as making a movie, which is, where do I put the camera? How do I get this actor to do this thing? These two actors aren't getting along. How do I get them to play this? It's very different skill sets. So yeah, if he wants to, I'd be very interested in seeing it. But it seems like he probably knows he has a different skill set. David Patterson, Rian Johnson is not a director I would consider great. Knives Out and Looper. I only love two of his movies, and the only other one of his that I really like was Last Jedi. I mean, he only has 5 movies. So you just said you love 40% of his movies. What is it? Maybe he has 6. Does he have 6? I think he has 5. So you love 2, and then you have another one that you're very positive on. And so that's a pretty good batting average. It's not like he has this huge filmography that you only like 3 out of it. It's like he has a small filmography and you like over half of it. One of those I think is kind of a bit of a dud, and the other one I think is his first effort. His first movie that was very small budget and kind of different, distinct thing. So I wouldn't overstate your opinion on him too early, because it's just not, the sample size is pretty small there to have too strong of an opinion. Jackson, when they inevitably make another Star Wars trilogy to make a dozen, how would you feel about them taking place between the prequels and the originals? No. I mean, we already have that. Solo, Rogue One, Rebels. Like, we already have that. We've already spent time there. So if we're going to do more episodes, that is literally the last place I want to go. Like, that is the last place I want to go. Between the prequels and the originals, that's the space they just keep going to with these things. So I do not want that. David Patterson, I found Brick to be overrated in a high school setting, did not work for me at all. I mean, that's fair. Keep in mind, it's his first movie, low budget. He tried something different. You try something, experiment with something different. It'll work for some, it won't work for others. So I totally get that you think it's overrated. But put in that category of, this is also not, he was given $50 million and made that movie. It's like, that's him working hard to get something forced and made, and with the limitations that he had. So it's like it categorically different in my mind than all of his studio projects. In his studio projects, you were all positive on. Bryce Bailey, favorite Blumhouse movie? I don't know. I don't have a list in front of me to think through that one. So unfortunately, I don't know. Jessica Eamon, I can't wait for your Funko Pop collection. I have some ideas to send you some, but I'm waiting for that video to have ones that you have been looking to send you. Yeah, it should be, I think, Tuesday. I think Tuesday is when I'm going to do that video. It's an easier one to do because I only have under 50 or whatever. It's a much smaller number than the hundreds of movies. And they're not like with a movie, I grab it and I want to give a mini review. And so you do hundreds of movies times 30 seconds, adds up real quick, versus Funkos where it's like, hey, it's a clone trooper. Landon, have you seen the TV show King of Queens? Not really. No, I mean, I've seen some episodes, but haven't really seen it. Jackson, your opinion on Booksmart swayed me. The movie on rewatch wasn't as good because I was remembering, oh, that wasn't high school for me at all, and nobody got into the Harvard from my school. Not everyone. Nobody from my school, not everyone. Yeah, it's a little bit of that. I've actually been thinking about, like, what is it about that genre that I don't like? And to go dark on you real quick, I mean, my dad started drinking in high school, became an alcoholic, actually had multiple affairs, and drank himself to death after multiple divorces. So the idea of a movie romanticizing the behavior that my father started in high school and never got a hold of and just let dominate his life, romanticizing that to me is like, I don't know, it's not romantic to me. Like, these are paths that people go down, and it's not Harvard for most people. It's not, oh yeah, we just had a fun night and turned into Harvard. Like, that's not the way this normally goes. So I just don't, it's a genre that I don't, sits very poorly with me. Matt G, are you old enough to remember UHF stations? We had local cable access. I don't know if they weren't UHF stations, but we had local cable stations that we mess around with a little bit. Rich Reviews, thoughts on CW picking up Walker, Texas Ranger reboot and Superman and Lois show? I mean, I don't have any new thoughts on it. Okay, we're going to get the guy from Supernatural doing Walker, Texas Ranger. Cool, I guess. I'm kind of burned out on CW shows, but I'm interested in the Superman show. I just hope they don't infuse it with all the over-the-top garbage that's ruined these other shows. If it's a little bit Lois and Clark for the 21st century, that would work for me. I don't trust them too much. Matt... Matt G, your thoughts on films like The Ten Commandments or Ben-Hur from a critic and religious accuracy standpoint? I haven't watched them recently to have an interesting take for you. Yeah, I don't think I have anything for you. I haven't watched them recent enough to be able to say, here's my take as a critic, because I have not watched them since becoming a critic. Yeah, I unfortunately I don't have anything for you. Rich Reviews, so I guess Bad Boys 4 is going to be called Bad Boys Forever. Isn't that redundant considering that they got Bad Boys for Life? A little bit. I mean, it's a little bit, but, oh well. Jackson, can you explain what it is that makes your nose hurt? It doesn't hurt, it itches. It's like the overstimulation, because from talking in the air, it's just stimulating my nose, and so then if it's a little bit itchy from allergies, combine that with large amounts of vibrations from talking for an hour straight, there's enough stimulation in my nose that it just makes it itch. It doesn't hurt, it just itches. So then I start rubbing it, and it starts turning red. Actually, I get tired of hearing that cliche about movies based on books, that the book is better. Obviously, the book has more info because we can't make a 16-hour long movie. Yeah, I think it's also a pretty dubious, like, they're two different mediums, and so if you go into the world reading the book, you've explored this huge, gigantic thing. When you watch the movie, it feels like it went and squished into this small thing. But that's to say you experienced the benefits of a book versus a movie. The benefit of the movie is that it only took you a 2-hour investment of your life. It didn't take a 20-hour investment of your life. Those are both advantages and good things. So, I mean, there's times where I think that legitimately they sacrifice things, and there's times that I think that they're both great at what they're trying to do. Like Jurassic Park, they're both great at what they are. and they function great as companions to each other. But, yeah. Matt G, do you ever go to the drive-in theaters? No, they haven't had one anywhere near me. But literally 2 days ago, found out that they're opening one here in town, like in the actual city of Hutto that I live in. And so probably in February, we're going to see a Back to the Future. And there are several different ones, double features. It's like Back to the Future and Princess Bride. So we might be taking our kids to see those ones very, very soon. Last movie I think I saw at a drive-in theater was probably Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. Like, it was that far back. Jackson, I have a suggestion for who should direct the next Star Wars movie. John Campea. Whew, bold. Matt G, you agree that Star Trek Next Generation Measure of Man is one of the greatest Trek episodes? It's a great Trek episode. I don't know, I don't know off the top of my head I would go like this is comparison of which one is the best. I think I technically have my favorite episodes of Next Generation video on my channel. It's a very early video for my channel, but it's great. Rich Reviews. I never forgave Scott Derrickson after he made The Exorcism of Emily Rose and his remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still. Fair enough. Maggie, I think it's funny Kevin Smith is going to make Clerks 3 since Jay and Silent Bob 2 was made because he couldn't make Clerks 3 in the first place. Yeah, I know. He's one of these guys that, I mean, he invented his career by being a scrapper that gets stuff done. If he wanted to do Clerks 3, like, he could make Clerks 3. Literally, he went into debt on credit cards to make it. He made it for like $20 million the first one. So he could make a Clerks 3 if he wants to make a Clerks 3. Matchy, thoughts on if we're going to have more traditional Star Trek movie TV shows under a unified CBS, Viacom, or whatever it is? Have more traditional Star Trek movie or TV shows under... I don't know your definition of those things. I don't think we're going to get Star Trek on the channel CBS. I think that they're just going to use that. They know Star Trek fans will pay premium to see Star Trek. They know that they're bought in. They know that I'm going to pay money for CBS All Access to watch these shows, even if I'm mad at Discovery. And when you say traditional, I'm not sure if you mean, are they going to go back to Next Generation style versus Discovery style? I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to keep doing 21st century updated versions of all of this. But just Damien, were there any movie couples that you were really... Were there any movie couples that you were really shipped as a kid, young man, adult? For me, I really liked... I don't know... I think you're missing a couple words and things. I think you're asking me if there are any movie couples that I really enjoyed. I mean, I'm not really invested in movie couples, so I don't have any that really come to mind, I don't think. Jim and Pam, The Office. Rich Reviews. Have you heard somewhere that Rami Malek, villain in the new James Bond, is a reinvention of Dr. No? I have heard that rumor. Maybe it's true. Maybe he's a reinvention of Dr. No. Some of that stuff, I don't care too much about it. When they do the reinvention, it's like 50 years later, it's a total reinvention. So, cool. I'm not invested enough in Dr. No to care, but cool if you want to tie back. Matt G, thoughts on Monty Python? Unfortunately, one of them just passed away. I've never been a massive Monty Python person, but, I've enjoyed Holy Grail and some other things here and there in little bits, but I've never been a diehard fan of Monty Python or anything like that. Jackson, why do you think Ang Lee made Gemini Man when it was so obviously going to be seen as a copycat of Looper? I don't know that I would buy into that take on the movie. I think that's a very... There's ties... There's a lot of gigantic differences between the two, and so I don't immediately think that's the obvious comparison that someone would see in the two movies is, it's the same as Looper. Well, it's not the same as Looper. There's just some stuff that there are things that, like, okay, Assassins, younger, older version, but then it goes to very different places from there. So I just don't think that would be the thing that would come to mind as you're writing it. You just see that later on in the process. Not seemingly fake. Would you like to see a Star Wars movie taking place after Episode 3, even though we already have a game about that? I don't know. We've had a ton of games in that window of time. That window of time is where Rebels sits. It's where Rogue One sits. It's where Solo sits. It's like they keep going back to the reign of the Empire. ton of books are set there, and so we've just seen it extensively. So I just want to go somewhere else in this universe and not go back to the same exact thing that we keep seeing over and over again. And it's just tough to even put like a big gigantic story in there because we would have heard about it already. Not seemingly fake. Do you like the music in The Rise of Skywalker? I like it. I think it's some of the least interesting stuff that John Williams has ever done. Jackson, let me kick you a scenario. They announced a Star Wars, Star Trek crossover film series. Give me a one-word description of your reaction. Horrible. Horrible. One is science fiction. One is science fantasy. They're not designed to go together. They're like it's pure fan fiction. Like, wouldn't it be fun if Spock and Luke were? No, it wouldn't. Like, Spock and Yoda. No, it's not. I have no interest in that at all. Like none whatsoever. David Madison, when I told my dad Die Hard was my 6th favorite movie of all time, he was surprised for the reason. What's wrong with Die Hard? Are you asking me? You're asking me what's wrong with Die Hard? I have it as like my 3rd favorite movie of all time or 2nd favorite movie of all time. I don't remember what I said in my video. I literally do not think there's anything wrong with Die Hard. I think it's basically a perfect movie and one of my favorites. So you would have to ask your dad that question. I cannot answer the question as to why someone else thinks that a beloved movie, because Die Hard is a beloved movie. It's not a movie that like I'm picking something incredibly obvious when I put Die Hard as one of my favorite movies. People look at me and they assume it's one of my favorite movies, and they're not wrong, and they're not wrong to do so. It's entirely true and correct to do so. So you'd have to ask your dad why that is. I would have no clue as to what that thought would be. Jackson, movie idea, Jurassic Park, Bible story, Noah crossover, Jurassic Ark. Now you're talking about a movie that I can get excited at. Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in, for supporting me over here. I'm trying to do my best to really have as much value on Patreon this year as I can. So I'm hoping to continue to have every week a couple of exclusive videos for you guys, and just kind of have it as the place to kind of go deeper for the channel and stuff that feels a little bit off-brand but still movie-related. All that stuff is going to be on Patreon, and so I'm just really hoping it's just an awesome year for the site. So thank you once again for making all this possible, and talk to you next weekend.